Hello, everyone. So today we will be looking at our experiment on isolation of casein. So this is my kitchen. Everything, I set up the experiment right here. But in this video, what I want actually divided into three parts. The first one will be a very brief introduction on the experiments. So I will show you the background. And the second part will be on the safety. So I will have my personal protective equipment, so my apron, my goggles, and my gloves on. And that's the protective gears you want to have on as well before you start performing the experiment, and take a picture of yourself and upload onto the safety session. You can find on your canvas for this lab. And the last part of this video will be on the experimental setup. And there will be a separate video that show you, give you a demo on this experiment. Right, so first thing first, I will show you, I will give you a little introduction on this lab. So hopefully at this point you have read through the, I think at this point you have read through the experimental procedure and watched the introduction video, but just a few things I want to point out. Here is the procedure that you could find on Canvas. So this is the lab, which is the isolation of casein. So casein actually is casein is a protein found in milk. And casein is very poorly soluble in water. So that makes casein, that we can isolate casein from milk. So that's the basis of this experiment, because the protein itself is poorly soluble in water. So it is poorly soluble in water. However, it is found in milk, right? So what it is actually is a suspension in the solution of milk. Right, so the base solvent, so it's a suspension. What is a suspension? Because it forms a protein, small protein bubbles. We call them the micelle. And usually we can't really separate them, right? The only way we can separate them is if we have a centrifuge. If we have a centrifusion, so we can spin the sample really quickly, and that way we can see the solution separating from the protein. So in this lab, what we do is we're gonna add acid, which is the acetic acid, which is the vinegar that you find in your supplemental kit. We're gonna add acid into milk. Right, so or vinegar into the milk, and we will reach the isoelectric point at the point. So remember, casein is a protein, and protein is made by amino acids. Right, so when we add acid, the hydrogen ion, which is from the acid, balance out the negative charge on protein, as well as breaking up the salt bridge that gave the protein their shapes. All right, so usually protein will have a three-dimensional structure of the protein. However, when we start adding acid, that destroy the interaction, the salt bridges, so that denature the protein, or the protein can unfold and denature the protein. So in this figure 1, so casein micelles usually are these small, in this picture is a small circles, it's a suspension in milk. However, after we add acid, we see a network of solid. So in our experiment, when we add vinegar into our milk suspension, so we will start seeing solid formation, and we will isolate that solid, which is the casein. It's no longer in the nature form because we denature the protein by adding acid. Okay, so what you will need for this experiment, you will need the 2 filter paper. Everything you can find, the back says isolation of casein, the dry milk, stirring rod, filter funnel, pH paper, as well as vinegar, which you can find in the supplemental bag. Okay, so that's the first part of a little background. Please let us know if you have any questions. And then now let's move on to the safety. Let me stop sharing this. So in your lab safety kit, right, this is the safety set. You will find goggles right here, and you will also find gloves and the apron. Okay, so I give you these lace so you can go through the hole and make your own apron. So right here as well, right there. Okay, so I will put my personal protective equipment before. Please put on your personal protective equipment, the apron, the goggles and gloves before you start working on the experiment. Okay. Okay, so I have my personal protective equipment, my goggles with side shields, my apron that protect my clothing, right, and my gloves. And like I said, I'm setting this up in my kitchen that I want to be close to the sink or water source because we will be working with vinegar. If anything spills, we can rinse it off right near the sink. And so please make sure you take a picture of yourself in personal protective PPE, right? And upload that onto the safety session of the lab. Let me show you my setup. Okay, so for this lab, you will need 2 filter paper, right? So everything actually was from the isolation of casein. Solution of casein, and from there you will also find the dry milk powder, and you will need the balance as well. Look like this, and it came from in this box right here, and so you can open it up and remove the cover. So we will use that later in the second video. And you will need the glass rod. It actually was wrapped in this bubble wrap. Okay. And what else do you need? In that bag, you will also isolation of casein bag. You can find the pH paper as well. And here I use a weighing bowl, so I can have my pH paper sort of in my weighing bowl because when I measure the pH, I can just touch my solution and dip on my weighing bowl, so I don't make anything wet. Right, so that's just a recommendation. And what else do you need? You will need a plastic cup for filtration later, and you will need the medicine cup, a small cup right here, and the 250 ml beaker, okay, and also the 10 ml graduated cylinder. I used the small Erlenmeyer flask that came in your kit. I will transfer the vinegar into this Erlenmeyer flask. The reason is I can rest my dropper in here, and when I'm ready to add the vinegar, I will use the dropper, transfer from the Erlenmeyer to my sample. And you also need the water. So this is in your supplemental kit. And like I mentioned before, the vinegar. And again, so if this happened to spill or on your skin or on your clothes, please remove your clothes as soon as possible and rinse off under water for at least 5 minutes. What I also did was actually use my daughter's drawing paper. I put it on top of my kitchen countertop. That way, if I know I have powder, I have a liquid, and I have a little plastic bag under as well. If anything, I can just remove all my setup and wrap it up, and it will be easy for me to clean. Okay, so that's the setup. And in the next video, you will find a demo of the experiment.